Okay, guys, thank you very much for joining to today's class. So today we are going to mainly focus on data transformations and transforming data from one format to the other. We will also see why we care about transforming data, why do we transform it. And the data formats that we are considering are CSV or comma separated values, XML, JSON, and also Excel file formats. So how do you transform from one format to the other? So we are going to use data with expressions. That is why we reviewed data with last time. And as you probably might have seen, we are going to use on new or updated file trigger to trigger the flow when there is new data coming into our folder. And we are going to also try to understand the real world application of the example. Okay. So let me go to these ones. We covered them last week. We start from here today. So I have some use cases, data transformation use cases here to help you understand why data transformation is very important. So one example could be, for example, you have XML data that is in hourly intervals, and the data analysts in your company may want the data in CSV format because CSV is easy to analyze for them. Plus, they want the data not in hourly intervals, but in at daily intervals. So you want to automate the data conversion or transformation from XML to CSV and aggregate it to daily intervals. So maybe you could be responsible to do that using MuleSoft rather than someone reading it in, running some code every time. You can create a Mule application that does this transformation and aggregation for you. So in this part of the class, we are mainly looking at data transformation, but down the line, we are also going to see aggregation, filtering, and so on. So that is one use case. I hope this one is clear. The other case could be for maybe, for example, you sell some products on Amazon or on Walmart, and they give you visitors data about information of the visitors who clicked on your products, who viewed your products, who purchased the products, and sometimes they give you hundreds of columns. So some of it is useful for you, some of it is not. You are not interested in some of it. So you may want they land it to some folder. Then from that folder, you may want to process the data and save only the columns that are of interest to you to some data lake, and the rest maybe you may want to back it up or you may want to delete it. This is another use case of data transformation. So when you transform it, when you move it from your original folder to the data lake, you may want to transform it to a more optimized one thing. If you remove some of the columns, you include only the columns of interest. The other thing is also you may transform it from the original data format they give you to more optimized data format. So this is another use case. Actually, there are hundreds, lots of data transformation use cases. This is just to give you a perspective. And another one is, so for example, in Amazon, there are different data storage prices, data storage services, and their prices are also different based on their availability, their durability, and other factors. So in some of the services, they could be very fast when you query your data. In some of them, it could be slower. It could also be less durable. So as you can see, the price changes. And the data that is more important to you, that is the analysts are using on day-to-day basis, you want it to be in the high availability storage. But if the data is old, if it doesn't have much use case, for example, after 9 months or 1 year, if the data is 1 year old, if you think it is less useful to you, you don't want to completely delete it, but you may want it to move it to a backup storage, which costs less. So you can use MuleSoft to schedule that, to automate the data backup process. So that is what we are doing today. Actually, we are doing it in our laptop, but when you move from one service to the other in the cloud, also the approach is similar. Okay. So now, so today we are looking, as I said, we are considering XML, CSV, JSON, and XLSX formats. And let's start with XML. How do you transform XML data to the others, to CSV, JSON, and xlsx? How do you move your data to a backup location? And how do you rename your data? On the way also, we are going to be practicing data with expressions. So before I go to Anypoint Studio, does anybody have any question? I can take a couple of questions here from today's class. Later at the end of the class, you can ask any questions, but the questions in the meantime, the questions I want them to be relevant to what we are talking about. Sergey, can you go ahead, please? Can you unmute and go ahead?
Yes, thank you. In MuleSoft, the JSON and CSV, is that only two we can use them as a data, or is there another just like them?
Yeah, so that's a good question. There are different data formats, but CSV, XML, and JSON are more common, especially JSON. It is very common. JSON and XML are common in programming, but for analysis to use CSV is easier. So we use CSV, XML, and JSON mainly. So in the data with tutorial also, if you go to the data with playground tutorial, here under creating data, okay, MIME types. There are MIME types in this case means data types. So in the tutorials, they mainly focus on XML, JSON, and CSV. So these ones will be the ones that we will focus more, but we will also see a couple of other data formats, including XL and a couple of other formats. So understanding the data structure of each one of them, how they are similar and different, is very important to understand your data transformation. Okay. Any other question? Okay, so let's go to Anypoint Studio. I will go over this slide step by step, and some of you have tried it already and you faced some issues. So when we got at those points, you can ask me questions. Okay, so the first thing is we are going to download the data from here, from the GitHub repo. You just click this. It takes you to the GitHub repo. We have the GitHub repository or project, you can call it. Then you go to code. We say this is a review. We have seen it before. You can just download all of it. Click download to your computer. And I download. Okay, let me first make sure I don't have anything here. So I want to download it to my downloads folder. Download as zip file. So you go to code and you download to it as zip file. Now I go to my downloads folder, and here it is as zipped file. So I right click on it and click extract all. So if I do this, it will be extracted to my downloads location. Actually, I want only the data, my GitHub repository. It contains other things also. We just need only the data we have for this tutorial. Okay, so now I can go here. So this is a MuleSoft GitHub repository. And if you go here, there is free MuleSoft developer course. And then under it, there is data. These are the different tutorial, the different data sets that we are going to use for this tutorial. But we want only, for today, we want only the XML data files. So you can copy, where is the airports XML? I have airports XML here. So you can just copy these files. You can even copy all of it, this data folder, copy it, and move it to your MuleSoft project. For example, if you, in my case, I have a MuleSoft, I have it here. Yeah, this one. So I have pasted it here. In your case also, you just paste it where you want it to be. Then under it, you will have the data. In my case, I have this data files. Actually, I can update this. Let me delete this and paste it. So now I downloaded the data from GitHub, basically. Just download the whole code, the whole repo, unzip it, extract it, and simply explore this until you get the free MuleSoft developer course, and you go to the data folder and you copy this data folder and move it wherever you want it to be. We want to use the data, the XML data for today, mainly the airports.xml, this data. So let me open it and show you. So the data looks like this. So we have this data. So this data, how can we transform it to CSV? How can we transform it to JSON? How can we transform it to XL is a question that we are looking at today. And understanding the structure of the XML is important, at least at a high level. You have to open it and see what it looks like. In this case, for example, you see there is a root node. We said in XML there is a root node. Everything is under that root node. If you see some text within this angle bracket, we call it a tag. And in XML, the top one is called the root node. So we have this root node. Then under it, we have different tags, row tags, as you can see. Each row tag, it starts with row within angle bracket, and that angle bracket with a forward slash is the end of that tag. So, and we said each row in this case is a row in Excel. So, or it is an object in JSON. So how do you transform this data to JSON or to XML or to CSV? Let's see. So this is what we are going to build at the end. Let me show you at a high level, and then we will close this and start from scratch and build it. So we said for a Mule application to compile, it needs at least a processor, but generally a Mule flow has 3 parts: a source, an error handler, and a processor. And we said source and error handler are optional. Source and error handler are optional, but from the different source triggers that we have, so far we have seen listener, scheduler, and also on new or updated file. So we are looking this one today, on new or updated file. What it does is it checks the folder, a given folder that is specified. In this case, for example, our input folder, it checks that. And if there is new data, then the flow gets triggered. The flow starts. That means if there is no new data, or if the data doesn't get updated, then the flow doesn't get triggered. So what do we do what are the specifications that we have to do to provide for this trigger? Can you guys mute yourselves, please? So the data, I downloaded it, and I have, so here I have this data, and in the tutorial, if you go over the slides, what it says is, the first thing is we create data transformations. Okay, no, it should be here. Data transformations folder. And under that folder, we create input, output, and backup folders. So I have that created here. As you see, I have this data transformation folder. Simply right click here and create a new folder. So I have data transformation folder here, and inside it, under the data transformation folder, I have this input, output, and backup folders. So what we want is, in this case, we want our MuleSoft application to check this input folder and see if there is a new data there, and we want it to process that data, and the output should be in here, and the data should also be backed up to this backup folder. So let me first delete all these files that I have here. Input. So I don't have any data to start with. Okay, but so assume this one, for example, assume this one is some folder in the cloud, and there is data is being dumped to this folder every hour or every day, and you want your data processing automation with MuleSoft to grab that data, process it, and send it to somewhere. In our case, our destination is this output, and also the data, the original data, we don't want to delete it, so we want to back it up here. So this is our backup folder. That's what we are doing. Okay. So if I get back to here, the other thing is we discussed about flow types. There are 3 flow types. Main flow, we said it's main flow, private flow, and subflow. So we are in today's demo, we are looking at how to use subflows with main flow and to reference them using flow reference. So we have this flow reference. Each flow reference references one of these subflows. There are 3 subflows that you see here. The first subflow, what does it do? It transforms the data to JSON and writes it to JSON. So this is to JSON subflow. The second one, what does it do? It transforms the data to CSV and writes it to disk in CSV format. The third one, it transforms it to Excel and writes it to disk in Excel format. So in my case, as I said, it is to my laptop, but it could this could mean also it is the similar approach if you are to transform it and send it to a Google or Amazon service, for example. So that's what we are doing. And the other thing is on this new or updated file, there are a couple of things that I want to mention. So mainly let's see on the new or updated file specification. Let's discuss that. Pay attention here, and if you have questions, also prepare your questions. So the directory here is my input directory. That means I am telling it to closely follow this, to closely check this folder, which is in my case, this input folder, to see if there is new data there and to process it. So I have given is this data for location. And the other thing is, if that data, if different data formats could come to that folder, and if I want to process only specific data formats, I can specify the data formats that I want it to pick. Like for example, let's say there is CSV, JSON, and other formats coming into that folder. Some of it is simply additional data, metadata. I don't want to process it. I just want to process the XML format, for example. Then in that case, you have to specify the matcher here. So we go here, and there are two approaches to specify that using the edit in line. So as you can see, what have we done here? We have explicitly told it that the file pattern should be XML. So for those of you who don't know this kind of specification, what we are doing is, so let me show you a couple of XML data formats here under data, and see this one. I have this customers data. It is XML format. See the data, the type. You can see it from the type column. Customers is XML format. Employee is also XML format. So, and if you right click here and see it, it is customers.xml. The other one is employees.xml. So the customers and employees, the file name, you can just replace it by asterisk to mean any kind of file name as far as the data type is XML. This means like that. So asterisk in this file name pattern matching, it means you are specifying what the data type should be, but you don't care about the file name as far as it is XML. So that is one thing. Like if you want to process CSV only, you replace this XML by CSV. If you want to process JSON only, you replace this XML by JSON, and so on. Okay. So the other thing is our on new or updated file, we want it to check the folder for new or updated data every 10 seconds. So it is checking every 10 seconds, and when it checks every 10 seconds, if there is new data, then the flow will start, the flow will get triggered. If there is no new data or updated data, then the flow doesn't get triggered. Okay, the other thing is also here, there is an option to auto-delete it, and you can also specify the move to directory. So in our case, we want to back it up. We want to move it to the backup location. So I have specified my backup location here. all these steps are in the Google Slides. You can go over the Google Slides and build the demo yourself. But for now, it is good if you follow here and ask if you have questions. So this is our destination folder that we have specified. The other thing that we have to discuss, spend quite some time here, is this Mule application, the data with expression, how we are creating the backup name and why we are doing it like this. So if you have data coming in again and again, I mean, like for example, if you have data coming every hour, it is good if you add date and time to the file name so that you know when it came. You can process. If you want to, from the backup location, if you want to process historical data, you can specify only data matching specific time window. So I am adding the date and the time information here, but why am I adding it this way? Let's see. So we saw, I think so far we have seen a couple of functions in data with functions. And if you go to the data with playground, if I write now and just do it like this as a function, it gives me, let me go here to the tutorial. So just click on the playground, click on the playground. If I type now, it gives me the date time. As you can see here, it has date and time up to seconds and some milliseconds and so on, this information that you see here. So now is one of the core data with functions. And if I go to this link in the slides, for those of you who were not there in the previous class, these are the core data with functions. You can see what they are used for, and so on, what inputs they need, and so on here. So now it should be here. So now, where is it? Is here. Returns a date time value for the current date and time. So this is one of the functions that we have seen before. But if the other function that we have seen is type of. So if I go to here, there is type of. You see here, type of. It gives you the type of the data because the operations you do depend on the data type. Like for example, you cannot multiply two strings, right? Can you multiply A times B if A and B are not variables? You cannot, right? The same thing, understanding the data type helps you to understand the kind of operations you do. You can add if it is numbers, for example, or you can subtract if it is numbers and so on. But if it is a string, multiplication may not be possible. It depends on the programming language. Like for example, in Python, if you do A times 3, it just gives A 3 times A. In other languages, that may not work. So anyway, understanding the data type and what kind of operation that programming language supports, understanding that is very critical. So this one, let's see now, what is the data type of now? If I check the data type of now, what do you think will be the data type? Who can answer? What do you think is the data?
String.
String. Okay, who else? What else?
Date or date time.
Yeah, date time. This is tricky. Yeah, it looks string, but it has this information time, so it knows this is date time. So if we can check type of, if we do like this,
timestamp, right?
Yeah, date time. So there are different date and time related data types. We are going to see them, but this is the date time. And the other core function that we looked at is this one, double plus, to concatenate two strings or two values. And if you try to concatenate, we said, okay, this forward slash is a command. So now I can concatenate fish, and then is coming, for example. It gives me fish is coming. It concatenates both of them because this one is a string. The first one is string. The second one is also string. So we can concatenate them together. That is one issue. So I want to remove this dot. So that's why I'm going up to second. And also I want to concatenate whether the file is, I want to add information whether the file is processed file or backup file. So in that case, in here, I have the date time and I'm changing it to year, month, day, hour, minute, second. Then in here I can add, if it is backed up file, I can just add backup dash and concatenate that string with this string. Now I get this one. So you see backup. Then here we have the date time information up to second. Then I can concatenate to this the file extension. If it is CSV, for example, I add CSV. So this is a legit file name, CSV file name, for example. And if it is JSON, the file name, if I want it to be JSON, I just make this JSON. If I want it to be XML, I just will add it an XML here. So this way, we are including date and time in our files, and also adding information whether it is backup file or processed file. So that is what I am doing in here. And the other thing is, so in here, pay attention in here, we have post-processing action. So post-processing means this action takes place once the data is read and transformed and processed and so on. So since I want to save the data when I back it up, since I want to add the original file name, I am saving the original file name as a variable. The original file name, I can get it. The original file name, I can get it as, if you click here, attributes.filename. Here, when it reads the data, it is saved as attributes.filename. We can access it like this. But if I don't create a variable, if I try to put this value in here under the backup, what is happening is this is post-processing action, and that attribute is lost by that time. You cannot get it. There is no file name attribute once the data is processed, because there are other actions and transformations that took place. So to avoid that, what do? We create a variable. We save the file name. We save the file name as a variable. So that is what I have done here. So backup, concatenate it to concatenate it with the date and the time up to second, and concatenate it with dash, as you can see here, and concatenate to that the original file name. So in my backup location, there will be the original file name plus when it was backed up, plus there will be the keyword backup pre-appended to it. So that is what we are doing here. And once we do that, scatter gather we have seen last time, it does concurrent operations. So in this case, this scatter gather, the mule event will be transferred to 3 of the flow references. The mule event will be transferred to each one of them concurrently. Then each flow reference will reference one of these subflows. So if I click this one and show you, you see this one, the first one on the top, it references the to CSV subflow, which is this one. And the other one, each one of them, they reference one subflow. And if we see from each subflow, let's see what data transformation we have and why we are doing that. So here we have payload.data.*row. So we have seen this in the data with playground tutorial. If you go here, last time we talked about multi-value selector. So that is what we are doing. I guess from now, let's remove this and start from scratch and discuss in each step what we are doing. Because this one, rather than simply talking about it, I want to show you in action why I'm doing that. So I will remove this, I will close this and start another new Mule project. But from what I have talked about so far, anyone has any questions? I see 2 questions. Oh, okay, these are answers. Anyone has any questions? Okay, so to close a Mule project, you just right click on it and close project. So now I don't have any Mule project. Okay, so I create a new Mule project here. Like usual, you go to File, New, Mule Project. In the file name, we use kebab style, we say it usually. So data transformation v2. So this dash is called kebab style. There is also underscore called snake style, camels. There are different styles, we will see them. But when you create a project, just practice using dash rather than underscore when you have multiple keywords, rather than, you should not separate them by space. Okay, so finish. So the first thing we need is to put for the main flow, we want a trigger. And where do I get the trigger? Who can answer? On on new or updated file trigger, where do I get it?
You have to add flow file.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So there is no file module. I don't see it. I click add modules. Then I see file module here. I drag and drop it from the right to here to the left. Then now I have file module, and I have the different operations under that module. And one of the operations we have is on new or updated file. So drag it from there and put it on the canvas. So all the things we talked about, the specifications, we are going to specify them here. So here, okay, as you can see, my input, it doesn't have any data. My output also, it doesn't have any data. My backup also, it doesn't have any data. Once we build this app, we are going to copy paste data to here. We are assuming data is being dumped here by some system, and we are taking it from there and processing it. So I specify the directory here. My directory is my input directory. I'm telling it to closely watch this folder. And I want it to check only for XML files. So I go to the matcher to match the file type. I want file name pattern specification here. And we said for the file name, we put asterisk to mean any file name. I don't care about the file name as far as it is XML. You can also say the file name should contain this, and that, and so on, but let's make it generic like this. The next thing is we want this trigger to check the folder every 10 seconds. We have different options here. For example, if the data comes only once per day, we may make it daily. It depends on the application. Let's make it seconds for now. And other thing is here, we want to move our data. This is post-processing, as I said. We want to move our data to the backup location. So we select the backup location here. For the rename tool, let's first create a variable, and we'll come to that. Okay, and also since we are processing XML data, we have to specify, tell MuleSoft what data it should process. So the MIME type. So the MIME type, I go to MIME type here, and as the drop down, I tell it should be XML. Okay, get to the general. So far what we have specified, we have specified the folder that it should check, and what the data type is, that it is XML, and that it should check every 10 seconds, and also that it should back the data up to the backup folder. And now let's create a variable. I'll show you the variable. First, let's create even what we can do when you create an application for the first time, and if you don't understand what contents it has inside it, what you do is you start small and you add a logger, then you debug it, then you see what the payload and the variables are, the mule event structure, what it is and how it is changing. Let's start with this one and add a logger. So you go to core, you have logger here, drop it here. Then I will add breakpoint. We said if you want to run it in debug mode, we have to add a breakpoint and run it in debug mode. So add breakpoint. Now debug the project. And now until this gets ready, until it gets deployed, I have to first save it. That's what it asked me. Click OK if it didn't save it. So in the meantime, I will prepare data. So the imports.xml data is here. Copy it because I don't understand what data transformation is. I have to do so. I'm experimenting and learning. So I wanted to put it to here, and it will start and show once it gets deployed. It will grab the data and bring it here. I want to show you how it saves the file name. So the file name is an attribute, for example. File name is not under payload because it is not the main data. The main data is, in this case, the data that is contained, like if we consider the airports.csv. So in our case, in this case, this is a payload. The actual data is a payload, but the file name, what data it is, and so on, is an attribute. So we access it as attribute. So how do you access the file name? This one. Okay, now it is deployed. Okay, so as you can see, now it you see we have payload, and if I click here, let's give it some time. Okay, as you can see, this data, I hope you see my window on the right. So you see this data is exactly this data. It has read this data in. That is the payload. We see it here. This is the payload, and I see what it looks like, the structure. I see what the different tags are. I want to show you the file name. So the file name is under attributes. See here, if I go to attributes and go file name, we have the file name here, airports.xml. And if we want to get the value for the file name, what we do is attributes.file name. You can, if you are not sure, you see something here, and if you are not sure how to access it, go check this evaluate data with expression x plus y equals to question mark. You just click it. It is temporary here. You write here attributes.file name. So evaluate. Now I know this is the code to get the file name. So you can check, you can experiment like this when you are stuck with something. So this is how we access the file name. Okay, so I will stop this and stop it and remove the logger. I want to create, the reason that I debugged it is to see how to access the file name. Now I know how I should access it. So let's create a variable. Variables are set variable, set payload, and so on are under the core module. So go grab this. Then, so we have this set variable. This display name is for us to see, just to understand what it is doing. So this is, I can say, file name. Then this one is the name of that variable. So let's call it file name. The other important thing, maybe if you face some questions, okay, if you face some errors, I mean, remember always, if you face some error, understand whether this fx should be clicked or not. Should it be literal mode, string mode, or an expression mode? So in this case, it is an expression. Attributes.file name is an expression. If I don't click this one, it will be string, so it will not work. Okay, so let me put the file name here, and then I will take questions. So click this fx. So in here, the file name, I access it as attributes.file name. You see, when I do attributes dot, it tells me the different options I have. So I see file name here, just double click it. So we have created this variable, file name. So now, since I have this variable in the post-processing, I know in the post-processing section for the trigger, I can input the expression. So let me move this here. And in here also, since it is an expression, if you face an error, make sure if you click this fx, did you click it? If you didn't, you may face an error. So click fx, So I want the file name to be, it is to move it to this backup location. However, the file name, I want it to be backup. I want it to have backup in the file name itself. And so concatenation is, we said we want to include the date and the time that it was backed up. So from now, this date time, we change it to string, and we include only up to second to remove the dot. So as a string, and we specify the format. If I don't specify the format, it will be the whole of it. But from the format, I can take only the year if I am interested, or the month, or the year, month, day, and so on. So specify here, and to specify the format, we do curly braces, format, then colon, then here, year, dash month, dash day, day, and hour, minute, and second. Then to this, I can concatenate the file name, vars dot file name. Actually, why it doesn't pick it when I do vars dot? Yes, okay, vars dot control space. Okay, maybe there is some error somewhere. So back up. For now, from this date time, I take the year, month, day, hour, minute, second. I have specified the format. I'm concatenating all this together, and that means joining them together. And the variable, we said if we have variables, we access values from variables using vars dot. So probably it is not picking it up, maybe because the setting the variable is after the trigger, so it could be so, but it works fine if we do like this, because it is post-processing. That means after it completes the process. So we can do like this. So now in this on new or updated file, we have specified what location to the data folder, the original data folder, the data type is what data type to look for, XML, the extension of the data we specified, and where to move it to and how to back it up. So now I can take questions up to this. Anyone, any questions? Okay, yeah.
I have questions.
Sure.
Just when we write on the strings, is that case sensitive or not? I mean.
Yeah, it is sensitive. Yeah, that's a good question. That's a good question. It is sensitive. Like for example, good question. So if we go here, let's say what do you have? One of the now this one in OW in lowercase. If you do it in uppercase, it may not work. I think it doesn't work. It is sensitive. So you can test here. Go to playground and comment this out. Now, so it says it doesn't know it. Type of also the same thing. If you do type of the when you especially the other thing you have to know is when you combine a couple of words together, then the start of the second word will be uppercase. See, size of, for example, O is uppercase, split by B is uppercase, starts with W is uppercase, and so on. Type of also the same way, O is uppercase or capital letter. Okay, so let's continue. So we have created the variable. Now we are talking about subflows and flows and subflows, and we said subflows act as components of the flow. We use flow reference to use them, and subflows, they don't have a source trigger and an error handler. One of the advantages of creating subflows is to make our flow, our application manageable, rather than having a very long flow where we have to scroll to the left and to the right. If we have subflows, it is easy to manage, easy to fix issues if there are code, easy to understand, and so on. So that's a good practice. And to create subflow, you drag and drop this subflow under core module. There is subflow here. So drag and drop it 3 times because we want to transform our XML data to 3 different data formats. So I have 3 different subflows. For now, for simplicity, for to know which one is what, I will just rename this to CSV, and this one to JSON, and this one to xlsx, so that is XL. And as you can see, the difference between flow and subflow is when you drag and drop a flow, it will have placeholders for source, process, and error handler, whereas here you don't see anything. So the subflows, you don't have anything. You can compare for yourself by, so if I can bring here, if I bring subflow, as you have seen, even I don't need to bring a subflow because I have the other subflows already. Let me delete this. But if I bring flow here, or that means dragging and dropping a trigger also results in a flow. If I bring a flow, you see it has a source, process, and error handler. Okay, so let me delete this. Right click, delete. Okay, in each one of these, we want data transformation and writing to disk. So the data transformation under core, we have transform message, bring this, and we want, after that we want to write it to disk or to any other system. We have write. So to three of them, I will bring write and transform because it is the same thing, like this. And to the other two, I have to add transform message, do here, bring this here. Okay, then each subflow, we want to call them in the main flow, especially for those of us who have programming experience. This is like just a function rather than using the same code again and again, writing that code long code, which is error prone and not easy to manage. You write a function and that function use it again and again and again. So it is the same thing, the same principle. So to reference these subflows, we use flow reference. So we have flow reference. Oh, okay. But before this, rather than executing it in sequentially, we said parallel execution is usually better. And to do parallel execution, we use the scatter gather from here. Scatter gather router, we bring it, drag it, and drop it in the. Let me increase the window here, size here. So scatter gather, I bring it here. So the mule event will be distributed to each of the operations under that scatter gather. Then I bring flow reference, we say to reference to each subflow. And you have to kind of scroll around here until you see this black vertical line, drop it. I have one flow reference. Other one, the same thing, bring it here until you see this line, drop it. Another third one, the same way, drop it. So we have three flow references, and we want each one of them to reference each subflow. So the first one, the first subflow, will be responsible for transforming the XML data to CSV and writing it to the disk. The second one will transform the data to JSON and write it to disk and so on. So if you click this flow reference, you have to specify the flow that you want to reference. And if you see under this drop down, you see the different subflows you have, including the main flow. So the first one we want it to reference to the CSV subflow. We can't even rename it here. So this flow reference, we can call it to CSV. The second one, we want it to be responsible to take care of the data transformation in the writing to JSON. So this one also I will call it to JSON. The third one, the same way, I will call it to xlsx. So, and also I have to specify the subflows that each one of them is referencing. So you see, the first one we have selected here to CSV from the drop down. The second one we have selected to JSON from the drop down. The third one, let's reference the one to xlsx from the drop-down. The other important thing, everyone, I have one question from the code. Also, I remember this I encountered in the certification exam. So see this one, when you use flow reference, or there are other things also, when you are expecting a payload from a subflow or any other external process, if that payload comes to your main flow, and it will replace your previous old payload. It could replace it. There are cases where that happens. And if you want your original payload also, what you do is the payload from your subflow, you can save it as a variable under this target. This target, if I give it a name, what goes from the CSV, from this subflow, what goes back to the flow reference is not a payload, but rather a variable of the payload. So a variable of the payload gets transferred. So if you are referring a child subflow, and if you want the payload from that child, if you want it not to overwrite or not to replace your original payload, you save it as a target here. That you put target name. Putting target name means saving it as a variable. So let me show you the question. Maybe you can understand more when I show you the question. So see this one. What it's saying is a flow reference component sends a non-empty JSON object payload to another flow named child flow. So the payload that it is sending is JSON.
Payload.
Yeah, it is JSON, and it is JSON, and it is non-empty. Now what it is saying is the child flow, in the child flow, the payload from the child flow is being saved as a target. See the target name is payload. You can call a variable also payload. I mean the variable name. The difference between calling the variable name payload and the payload as part of the mule event is the payload for part of the mule event is actual data, whereas this one is a placeholder, a variable. So if you put for target, if you put any name, the payload will not be returned as payload to the parent flow. Rather, it will be returned as a variable. Yeah, to access it, you will have to use vars.payload or vars.the target name is specified here. So okay. So that is one thing that I want to.
What would be the answer from the 4 dots there, bullets?
Pardon me?
There is a 4 bullet. Is that all the answer or one of them?
Oh, this one. Okay. So in this case,
It's the last one.
The payload is the original JSON, the object.
Yes, right. Because what we are saying is the payload that is coming from the child, it is coming as a variable, not as a payload. You are putting it in a different basket. So what is happening is you have one basket, you went shopping, you put some stuff to it, and then in one of the departments in that shopping also you are shopping something. If you don't specify this target name, what it means is throwing away what you had in the basket and putting new to it. Whereas if you give it a target name, then the new things you shop, we are putting them in a new basket. So you don't lose your original data.
Thank you.
Okay. I guess we can continue. Ask if you have any kind of questions. Make sure you understand it clearly. Okay. This one for now, the first one I will delete it so that it doesn't confuse you. Delete.
Okay, so I have a question while you're there.
Sure.
So I thought, okay, subflow was continuous to the main flow, correct? So if subflow is continuous to the main flow, why do we have two flow references since it fits the continuous to that? And
so the thing is, like this subflow, it could be long. In this case, I just have two, only transformation and writing, so I can put them here. So my flow will not be too long. However, in real applications, when we add more and more data processes, this will be very long.
Mhm.
So you cut it into pieces, and this subflow also you can call it a couple of times. You may have flows. This subflow, you may call it in different places, and it does the same thing for you. And also in real world projects, the flow, it involves lots of transformations and aggregations and so on. So we divide it into chunks, and that helps us to make it manageable. We don't scroll the whole page. We know what is happening where. It is relatively easy to understand the code and so on. So I mean, in this case, we have short one maybe. So you may ask, the subflows we have are small. Why don't we just put them here? And they are right in this case. But usually the subflow will involve more operations. The subflow itself, it may reference other subflows.
Okay, so are we doing system or process right now?
This one, in this case, we are, it depends, I think. Yeah, it depends. We will see more about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
We are using this one like pointer, like pointing, right? From the subflow.
Yes. We are referencing. So what we are saying is this event, it will get triggered by the on new or updated file. Then it will go to here. Then when it comes to scatter gather, all these flow references will be triggered in parallel, and each one of them, they will reference. They are giving assignments, basically. They are giving assignments to these subflows, and these subflows will perform the operations that is specified in each subflow. Probably as we see more examples, you may understand it if it is.
Hello, Doctor. My question is on the main flow. So we configure the input in the backup file destination, but not the output.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Output is on the flow.
So the output is under the transformation. We'll come here.
Subflow.
Yeah, in the subflows. Yeah. Okay. The other thing that I want to show you is we will come to this one. When you have when you are reading the new data, and if you don't understand what it looks like, let me close this and just create a new Mule project, and let's call it test. Give it any name. What I'm doing is I want to read the data and experiment what data transformation is appropriate for it. And the transformation you do, it depends on the data type and how it is structured. Like for example, let me show you what I mean. In here, I have two XML files, three actually. I will just show you two of them. I have airports.xml and employees.xml. We'll see what they look like. So this airports, if I open it, so the root node is data, and you see there are row tags, and they are in uppercase. So we have to see whether it is uppercase or lowercase also. Whereas if I open the employee, so right click and open it with Notepad++, as you can see, now my root node is not data but rather root itself, and I have
Root, small case.
yeah. So the transformation I do, I perform varies on how the data is structured. So I have to understand the data structure, and how do I do it? Let's just do using using the on new or updated file. Add file to here. Bring on new or updated file, and I want to bring the transform message. And let's grab a logger. And this one, I want it to, let me create just another folder, and here, for example, test. I want it to to read from that test folder. So I give it from here, just test, and I want it to delete. I don't want to back it up, so just delete it. Now let's debug this. What does it bring? So here, add a breakpoint here, and here, save this, run this in debug mode. I hope now all of you know the
I think the data is the Java, right? You didn't change that.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I want to show once the data comes to here, we have to see it, or we can open it and here see it here in an text editor. If I have sample data, I can see it from here, or I can also see once it reads it here, I can see what the data structure looks like and adjust my transform message, either of them. But yeah, right. Understanding the data using a text editor could also be easier and more efficient use of your time. So this is my folder that the application is checking. So let me bring data to it. First one is airports.xml. Bring it here and dump it here. Paste. So it will read it and delete it basically. So if you come here, oh, by the way, did I specify the time? Okay. Let me specify the time. I want it to be. It has brought it already. I don't care. Yeah. Okay. So we have this data. If I click here, you see. Enlarge this window. Okay. So as you can see on the right, I understand what the root node is, what the different tags are. So now once I understand that, I know if this one I want it to be in JSON, I put like this, and to access the data in JSON, we have the payload. Then the payload, it has a data node. The root node is data. So I do data. And if I simply do row, it accesses the first one. It accesses just only this one. Since I want all of them in object format or as a JSON format, we said for accessing multiple values, we add, what we do is dot asterisk or dot star like this. So if I do like this now, what it is going to do is the JSON data, we have the payload, which is in XML format. Actually, I have to tell it that it is XML also. It gets the root node when we use payload.data. Yeah. And to access all the rows, I do dot asterisk row. So I have to make sure this is case sensitive also. I have to make sure I spell it correctly. So this one, I save it. And let's see on the console if it updates the changes. No, okay. Yeah, okay. So it is updating it. Now when I click next, I will see the data transformed in JSON format, array of objects, where each object is error. Okay, it is saying it is. Yeah, that means so some of the changes you make, if the project is deployed already, it doesn't work. So stop this. And here also, let's to make sure, let's specify the MIME type. The MIME type is XML that we are reading. So run in debug now. Whereas for the other one, so in this one, how are we accessing the data? We are using payload dot data in uppercase dot star sign row. Whereas for the other one, for the employees, so we have the employees. For this one, we will do payload dot root dot asterisk row. So when we do that, it will give us each row as an object array of all the rows. Okay, so is this deployed? In the meantime, let me make sure I have data there. Okay, this one I have there. It has not deleted it because the flow didn't complete, the execution didn't complete because of that error. Otherwise, once it completes, it will delete this file. So, okay, we have this. So this one we have seen before. As you can see, it is a JSON file, an XML file. Now, if I click next processor, this one, the transform will be executed. As you see now, the transform message has not been executed. The data transformation has not been executed. That is why we see here XML file. Once this transform message is executed, we will see an array of objectives. So click next. So now if I click this, you see it like this. So it is an array, square bracket, and we have this one is one row in Excel, this is another row, this is another row, and so on. Once I transform it like this, I can do, once I have the data in array format, I can do whatever transformation. There are lots of transformations that, and the processing and aggregation that we can do, but transforming the data to array format is very important. So this is one. So let me click next. Let me click next. If you can see here, the data is deleted. Now I want to bring the other one, the other data file, the employees. So go here. I have employees. As we said, now the root node and the other tags are different. So let's see what it says. So here it has brought it here. This is our XML file. Let's see if it changes it to array. As you can see here, this is not data, it is root. So it should give us an error message in the data transformation. So click next. What do you get? Yeah, since it doesn't get it, it gives us null. Null means no value. There is no data value. It is empty because payload, had I put payload.root, it could have got that data. But when I do payload.data, since there is no that root in the data that it is reading, then it returns null value. However, if I change this now, if I change this to root, and this one lowercase row, because I see that from the data of the employee.xml, I see what the root node and the different tags are. If I do that, and let's see if it can pick up the changes. So finish this. Okay. Okay. Now let me paste the data again to here and come here. So as you can see, it has picked it up. Now the transform message should work appropriately. Click next. We expect an array, and this is array is here. So this is about one employee, all their data up to here. That is one object. About another employee with a specific employee ID, name, and so on, another object, and so on. So what I'm trying to show here is when we transform XML data, we have to understand the data structure, the structure, the root node, what they are called, the root node, and the different tags. Any questions so far? Okay. So shall we complete the project that we are building? Let me stop this, because we came here just to test how we should transform the data from XML to others. I think we are almost done. Let's complete this. So I come here, close this, or even delete it, and so this is what we were building. We are almost done. So now, the first one, we want it to transform it to CSV. And now, since the data, each file, we are just processing it and dumping it as a separate file, we don't want to remove the header. So last time, when transforming data to CSV, we added headers equals to false because we are appending data. Now we are not appending, so we don't want to say header is false, but rather simply the output should be application CSV, and the value is payload dot data dot asterisk row. I guess now we understand this is why we are putting like that. So this is to CSV transformation. This one, let's make it to JSON, we said, and put it here. The other one, pay attention here, when we transform data to Excel, Excel file has many sheets. Let me open, if you like, as a reminder. So I have Excel. I have Excel here, and we can have different sheets, sheet 1, sheet 2, sheet 3, or we can give it whatever name we want. Maybe the first sheet is about employees, the second sheet is about their address, the third sheet is about their performance, and so on. So see, by default it creates as sheets, and we can save data in these different sheets. So we can tell MuleSoft also to where to save the data. So here I specify this one is xlsx, and I give it sheet name. The sheet name should be, in this case, I give it as an object. The key is the name of the sheet, and the data is actually the data that it is going to write to that sheet. So let's call it my, for example, I can call it sheet 1 or my sheet or whatever, it doesn't matter. And the value is the same value. The value for all of them, as you can see, is payload.data.star row, asterisk row. But in Excel, I give it sheet name. For CSV and JSON, I don't give anything. I just put the data like this and specify the output what it should be. So I guess we are taking more time. Maybe we can stop here for today and continue from here tomorrow. But let's have a Kahoot for now. Just Kahoot for today's class. Then we'll continue from here tomorrow. Just review what we have done, answer questions you have. Some of you who are stuck at something, you can share your screens and so on, and we discuss. But for now, let's have Kahoot from today's, from what we covered today. So Kahoot, go here. I have week 5, class 1. I have 5 questions. So get ready for Kahoot. Please, as much as possible, I would appreciate if all of you can participate. So start. So this is the code. Are you guys sleepy? Okay. So far I see the Stalin, Aspal, and a couple of others who are always participating and also answering many questions correctly. I appreciate that. Keep it up. With this,
Hey, Doc.
yes?
My co-host is not letting me enter any pen. It's just the screen just froze.
Oh, that's okay. Is it always or today?
Just today.
That's fine. You can see, you can get the questions on the PowerPoint slides. The other thing is also we are going to prepare a questions bank, include all the scout questions together and the other questions with their answers, so that they can help you to study and prepare yourselves.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I think that's good. Out of 65, 42 people have joined already. So let's get started. When you use a new or updated file trigger, what happens to the original file? People are fast. I love it. Yay. So yeah, it depends on our specification. We may back it up or we may delete it. So we specify what we want in the drop down. So on new or updated file is a trigger. When we read files, we can use this one, or we can use also a scheduler with a read operation from the file module. Perfecto. Next one, if the payload of a subflow is saved as a target, what will be the payload of the main flow after the flow reference? So remember, it is being saved as a variable, that means. And if you save it as a variable, when it comes to the calling flow, then the payload does get replaced, or it is original payload. Yes. Yes. So we have many people have answered the payload from the subflow. Oh, you see this one? So what we said is, maybe I didn't explain it well. Let's get back to the slides. So we are discussing this. It is this question. So you have a flow. And there was JSON object in the flow before it references or calls a child flow. So there is some operation in the child flow, and the output or the payload of the child flow is being saved as a target. That means as a variable. So that data, it comes to the main flow as a variable, not as a payload. So in that case, the answer for this one is the payload before the subflow was referenced is the payload that you will get after the flow reference, because the payload from the subflow is being saved as a variable, so it doesn't overwrite your original subflow. Okay, next question. Okay. Which of the following is not a data with data type? Okay, perfect. So far we have seen there are different data types. The most common ones are array, object, and string, and also today we saw datetime, and we'll see a couple of others, but these are the most common ones. Yeah, word is not a data with data type. Okay, perfect. Cool. The stylum is at the top. How do you select the last 3 elements of an array? Cool. Yeah, who can tell why the answer is the orange color and what the others mean?
I think this one is 0 to 2, right? How it's.
So it doesn't say the first 3, it says the last 3.
Oh, is that the last? Okay.
Yeah.
Last 3 elements.
Yeah, the first 3 are right, so it is from 0 to 2. The last 3 is from negative.
From negative 1.
Yeah.
From negative 1.
Yeah.
I assume from the first.
Yeah, if you do from 0 to 3, it gives you the first 4.
Yeah.
4.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And are we done? No, there is one question. Last one, true or false? An object can contain an array as the value of a key. Okay, let me show you this what it means. So let's say JSON data here. Which one do I have? I have airport with JSON. So just focus on this one. So this is one row in XML. In Excel, we said name, latitude, longitude, altitude, time zone, and it is this zone. These are the columns and these are the values. So this is an object. We see key value. So for each key, in this case, the values are either a number, like in this case, a number, or a string. However, it can be anything. You can put it can be an object, the value. It can be an object. It can be an array. It can be array of arrays. Any information. It can be information. So that is what this is showing. I had even a picture here. Okay, let me show you an example data. If I go to download it, oh, did I delete it? Okay, let me see. There should be. Oh, this one, for example. Yeah, I have this one. See this one. So it is an object. We see it under curly braces, and the key is orders. So key orders information, and there is order number, when it was ordered, when it was ordered, and so on. See customer. So this is information about the customer, and about the customer, you can put their. In this case, we have their customer ID, first name, last name, address, city, state, and zip. So the customer, under it, we have it is an array, and that within that array we have one object, and even this city, state, and zip, you can make it address and make it by itself another object under that address key. So as you can see, it is very flexible. So any key can have any data format as its value. Is the take-home message? Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, this is all for today. Where is this? Let's see the results. Podium time. Abdish, thank you very much. 2 H's and the Stalin. Wow. Nice. The Stalin is always at the top.